talking about creative business ventures and just the stories behind that, I guess, and thinking through and
just helping you think out of the box a little bit.
yeah,
And business and creative at the same time.
and expectations. I think that's one of the things for me, like being in grad school, was you get this idea of the arts world and sort of the grandeur of it, but then you're like, oh wait, and not having a clear expectations of what it could be like or possibilities, I guess.
Absolutely.
Besides even like the academic world, which is maybe more clear cut.
Oh, structure.
And structured, and then all of a sudden you're like, whoa.
Right.
So
that's exactly how it felt.
That's what it feels like. Still, I'm like, whoa. And then trying to wade through, like, people give you advice about what you should do or not do, and sometimes it's really bad advice, or it's a little outdated, or it's an expectations of how these worlds run that they don't really run that way, I guess.
Right.
And maybe for some people they do.
Yeah. Which is why, I don't know, our blog is a little different.
Yeah.
We're like, here's what we do. This worked.
Yeah.
This didn't work. So, yeah.
Right.
But I'm excited because we get to hear about Sarah's creative process today. So our last episode, I guess?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Our last conversation.
Our last conversation was about creative business and kind of making your own path and all the different ways you could do that. So now we get to hear Amike and her brains.
My brains. It's like, yes.
There's a lot going on.
There's too much. Yeah. Never ending.
Yeah. So let's hear about it.
So I guess I think about when I was a kid, I loved stories. I was always making stories and had lots of imaginary friends and like stuffed animals and all these things.
She still has the stuffed animal.
I still have some of the stuffed animals
in her car.
In my car, yes. That I just loved stories and creating them. And I thought about like writing stories. I guess I had this like romantic notion of writing. You're like, oh, the writer.
Yeah.
And I like to read, but I found that I wasn't good at like come up with an original idea, but I could piece things together and collaborate and connect them and make something. And so I did that some in high school a little bit actually with my church, and then I made some pieces even in college, but actually in college I didn't do very much art stuff. I worked with a ropes course and learned how to facilitate and work with groups, and learned a ton about working with people and being creative and how you create a day and ventures and leadership stuff. So it was really instrumental for me and has a ton to do with creative business, a ton to do with working in groups and new people and all those pieces. And so then I taught high school students for a while and decided not to do that for the rest of my life.
English, right?
It was, well, I was like the humanities person.
Humanities, okay.
I was like everything. It was, yeah.
I bet you're an awesome teacher, just saying. Even if you didn't like it.
Yeah. So then I really struggled with pursuing the creative arts because it's not practical. There's not a clear path, and so people give you, and I didn't know any professional actors. Like, how do you even go about this? And I knew I needed training, so I decided to try to go to grad school. And like, I'm sure my audition was like the list of all the things you should never do. And in an audition is how I auditioned for grad school and got into the University of Louisville, which I had a great experience. It was really hard too, so it's a mix of like hard and good. But I began to see more too of like how my brain worked as far as creating and putting things together. And when I went into grad school, one of my professors had heard some of my family's story. He was like, Sarah, you should put a piece together. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, Russ, sure. And then my last semester, I had a class where I got to do a little bit of that and present a one-woman small show. And again, my teacher was like, Sarah, you should do something with this. And I'm like, Russ, I have no money. He's like, you'll never have money. Oh.
That's good advice,
It was
actually.
really, really good advice. And I was like, oh. Because I thought that, I don't know, you had to create and have a big budget or all these resources. And he was right. You just got to do it. So I had met this guy at church, he and his wife, and I just met them and knew he was a composer. I'd never heard his music. And I was like, hey, Dan, do you want to write some music? And I loved his stuff, and we collaborated, and I did my first solo show which was about adoption and my family. And so I guess my process is I love to just learn and create and figure out different ideas. So I love to follow people on Twitter. I love to watch movies. I love to go places and be like, oh, that's interesting. This is interesting. What if we put it together and
Pinterest.
see? I love
Like
Pinterest too. I'm like, ooh, all these cool ideas. What can I use from it and put together? So it's been a process too, because this is not a path that I knew other creatives doing it too. And I had people say to me, you know, you should move to New York, or you should do these common paths, which I think really fits for people, some people. But it's been helpful for me to have other people speak into my life or read their stories to say, find out what you like to do and what's going to drive you. And I find that I'm not a part of the unions and the acting unions at this point. And for me, I don't want to put my energy towards being like the maid in the show so I can get my union card. Because I want to do roles that challenge me.
We're stubborn.
We're stubborn.
Basically.
Yes.
Bossy.
Bossy. So I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to do my own stuff. And like the things that I care about, it's sometimes hard to find shows that I connect with, I guess, in those pieces. So I feel like it's taken me a while to figure out like what my process is, and I'm still learning. But it's been really helpful to know like my goal in life is to find people that I'm excited about their work and collaborate with them. And I don't even care so much like what the art is. Like Laura and opera, I'm like, I didn't have this huge fascination with opera prior, but I'm like, hey, she's a really good artist. I want to work with her. Like, what could we make? Right? And it's been
boom.
And then you're just interesting ideas that, I don't know. I think of myself as a magpie. They have this, magpies like collect things and they build this big nest.
And are they furry? That's not.
They're not furry.
Okay. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Maybe there's a furry magpie.
Butterfly.
Oh yeah. So, and that to me is kind of how I think about my process. Or is I collect lots of things that I find interesting, and then what could we put together and do that.
She's a researcher. Yes, that is so valuable. I mean, she finds poetry. She's like, oh, how about this sonnet for the Valentine's Day concert? I'm like, I've never heard of it. It's amazing. Just, yeah, Sarah is a researcher, and that is so valuable. I don't research the way she does. Like, I learn so much from her. So if you want a book recommendation, or
I'll overwhelm her email,
or yes, or just an interesting article. I mean, this girl, she can find them, and it shows in her work. I mean, Scheherazade, we brainstormed together, but she builds the story. She has collected things and built this gorgeous story. So
Which I'm excited.
yeah, an original work. It's really cool. So I think of you as almost like a collage artist. I feel like that is something people see and understand, and you're like, oh wow, that's a really cool collage, and that's what you do. But with poetry or artists, different types of art, it's really cool.
Yeah, and I think about, there's more music now that will say uses like pop music, and then there's a hip hop part of it, and then you're mixing different genres of music. That's what I love. I'm like, ooh.
Even some world music.
Yeah, how can you bring those things together and find that connection where there's a universal connection between things and do that? I don't know. I like, yeah, how can those odd things come together? Because my life often feels like this mismatch of things that are odd. So I'm like, but they're all in me. And my brain just doesn't stop. So that's part of the problem.
So I think what's interesting, I feel like good art, I don't know if everybody has the same process as Sarah. It was like just research and learning, but it's about juxtaposition, about opposites. Even, I'd say even in opera, because it's a lot of emotional, like I love him, but I can't.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of feeling of opposites, and I think that's what makes your art good, is because you're honest about it.
Yeah. And I think honesty is so key. Like there's not this magic way, and it's taken me a while to accept that, hey, I'm not in New York City, but I can still be an actress and create things and do stuff and love it and accept, I guess, what we're doing. And And that's okay. Like, those are good and valuable things,
Mm-hmm.
even if we don't have big accolades or any of
That's
those
right.
parts.
Creative business.
Yeah, it's not, yeah,
Mhm.
those pieces. And then,
It's not always big business.
no. But there's such value in those little pieces too,
Oh my.
and doing
Yeah,
that. So,
absolutely.
and then figuring out like what is your process and being okay with it. Like, not everyone should work the same way as
Right.
this actor or this person, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but learn from them and then
Yep.
steal it.
Or take what you think is good from it. I
Yeah.
feel like that's what I've done with
Mm-hmm.
all the different technique I've learned in singing and even acting for stage. Yeah, you just take things that you can from everybody that you've learned from.
Yeah.
Great.
So that's a little behind the scenes of
thanks
this crazy
for
brain.
sharing.
So, and my process gets better because I get to be around good people. So that's a big key. It's figuring out like people who are gonna be like, so what about this, Tara? Like, yes.
We love brainstorming.
We love brainstorming. Yeah.
Love brainstorming.
Yeah. It's a little addicting. The hard part is like practicing.
Right. Okay, now we gotta do stuff.
Yeah. So
Great.
So join us and share your process or things that
Yeah.
you do to create, and share your ideas. I love collecting ideas, and you
Yes.
never know how it may come in
That's right.
to our next show.
Mm-hmm. Be our next artist that we connect with, or your blog will pop up on our news feed or something like that.
Yeah. So don't forget, you can subscribe to us via email. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook and on our website.
For all those interesting things that Sarah finds and posts. And
Yes, try to share
sends.
with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Don't miss it.
don't miss it.
Bye.